Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I'm Hamza Idris. Nigeria has a total installed power generation capacity of 16,384 megawatts of electricity for its approximately 230 million population. This installed capacity is mainly generated from hydro and gas-fired thermal power plants, with the hydro plants providing 2,062 megawatts and the gas-fired 11,972 megawatts. This, however, does not include off-grid generation. Ironically, beyond the huge generation gap, Nigeria can only dispatch around 4,000 megawatts of electricity due to insufficient gas and grid infrastructure, with available statistics indicating only 15% of the 12.82 million registered electricity consumers can be guaranteed 20 hours of supply. As the federal government applies persistent IMF recommendations to remove subsidy on electricity, the National Electricity Regulatory Commission (NERC) announced an increase of 300% tariff hike for Band A consumers in the country from 68 naira per kilowatt hour to 225 naira. It is against this backdrop we'll be engaging with Barrister Bode Fadipe. He is the CEO of Sage Consulting and Communications Limited. He also undertakes power sector policy analysis, advisory and advocacy on the rationale and implications of the new electricity tariff regime in Nigeria as Nigeria struggles to also revamp the economy. He joins us via Zoom. And Mr. Fadipe, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, viewers.
Yeah, but before we commence the conversation, here are some tidbits. The Defense Headquarters on Thursday named 11 notorious and wanted terrorist commanders killed by troops of the Armed Forces of Nigeria between January and March this year, including the ISIS commander for the Sahel/ISWAP in the Northeast. Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, who made this known, gave the names of the terrorist commanders killed as Abu Bilal Minuki, aka Abubakar Mainok, head of ISWAP Furkan province, and Haruna Isia Boderi. Boderi is a notorious terrorist who operated along Birnin Gwari Forest in Kaduna State, as well as the Abuja-Kaduna Highway. He was killed by troops on February 24, 2024, and other terrorist commanders killed include Kachala Damina, neutralized in March 2024 by troops. He was neutralized alongside over 50 combatants. More commanders killed are Kachala Alhaji Dai, Kachala Idi Namaidaro, Kachala Kabiru Doka, Kachala Azarailu Padurwa, Kachala Badejo, Kachala Ubangida, and Alhaji Baldu, among several others. And manufacturers and organized labor have kicked against the federal government's 240% hike in the tariff payable by electricity consumers in Nigeria, those who receive 20-hour supply. They insisted on the subsidy on electricity, warning that its removal will send manufacturers out of business and worsen inflation. The subsidy on electricity has been withdrawn completely from the tariff payable by power consumers in the Band A category, who constitute about 15% of the total number of power users across the country. We'll now take a short break, and once we return with Bode Fadipe commences, don't go away. Yes, Barrister Fadipe, once again, welcome to the program. And I want to start with this question. Is it true that only 15% of consumers of electricity will be affected by this massive increase in the band, the tariff of electricity?
Thank you very much once again for having me. To answer your question straightforwardly, yes, because that is the data that NEC has released to us. Those that will be affected by the increase or adjustment in tariff, I prefer to call it an adjustment, on an upward adjustment in the tariff, is just about 15% of the electricity consumers population. The other balance 85% who consume 60% of the load available at any time in the grid will not be affected. And I think this stems from the fact that government is conscious of the effect and adjustments in tariff will have over the entire and it's very, very mindful of the fact that it needs to continue to do everything to make life a lot more simpler for everyone.
Now, you are a sector policy analyst, and you also advocate for good governance, especially in the electricity sector. Do you think it is possible to actually maintain this claim that only 15% will be affected? Do they have the infrastructure? Do they have the manpower? Do they have the parameters to actually measure that it only affects the 15% as they announce?
No. In terms of the infrastructure, in terms of parameters, in terms of the manpower, let's start with the parameters. The parameter for determining 15% is predicated on the number of people that are in the band A category. So discos have been allowed to place customers in different bands. There are about 5 bands. There is band A, band B, band C, band D, and band E. And what is the parameter for placing them there? The parameter is that once you consume electricity for 20 hours and above, then you are qualified to be in band A, and there is a measuring device. I mean, for how long will a feeder stay? That is the determinant. So if the feeder is supplying electricity for that 20 hours and above, then you are in that category. So in terms of manpower, of course, wherever you have infrastructure, the manpower will always be there to manage the infrastructure. And what is the infrastructure available? There are feeders all over the country. As a matter of fact, all over the country, we have over 3,000 feeders. And these feeders, not all of them are in band A. I need to be very clear on that. It's just about 1/3. As at the time that NEC gave that data, it's just about 1/3 of that over 3,000 that is on band A category. As a matter of fact, NEC has even downgraded some of these band A feeders just to make sure that customers are not unfairly treated, just to make sure that customers are rightly categorized into the band that they belong to on account of the number of hours that is available to them. So at every point in time, NEC does that review as based on the data that is supplied to them, and then their own technological devices that they use in monitoring those feeders that the discos have identified as feeders that give supply to customers for 20 hours and above. So we can say fairly well that you have that 15% as correct data, but not that alone. Usually from statistics all over the country, you find out that people, those who are not in the band A category are usually more. I mean, if you look at those who are living in Asokoro, those who are living in Jabi, take Abuja for instance, they will not be as much as those that are living in Pape, those that are living in Nyanya, those that are living in Mararaba, and all of those areas that, I mean, those that are living in Day in Kubu and things like that. So you can readily say that NEC's data will not be complete, I mean, will not be out of place. I think it's a data we can rely upon.
Now, somebody, in fact, we got a lot of calls today. Someone who lives after Kubwa, but not up to Zuba. There is a location. I can't recall the name of that location. He called.
Maybe Kagini or Day.
Today, when some of them, try to buy the credit, they realized that they were charged based on band A, even though they are not even band B or band C, because they are rating themselves as band D, because they don't get more than 5 hours of electricity in a day. Is it maybe an error of commission or an error of omission that this happened in such allocation?
Well, I hope AEDC will pay me for this, but I know that AEDC has put out an announcement to say that they made some errors, and that they were going to correct that error. Otherwise, if you are not in band A, then definitely nobody should bill you for band A. And if there is, I mean, if you are billed for band A, you have a right to complain. Just present your receipt, present your case to the disco, in this case AEDC, and if AEDC is not responding, you present your case to NEC, because these are some of the things that NEC is interested in, to the best of my knowledge. NEC is looking out for that situation where the customer has been unfairly treated, and NEC is prepared to correct that unfair treatment. And I'm sure the discos will not allow any customer to be treated and wait for NEC to intervene. So if there is a customer like that, I can readily beat my chest to say, take up your matter with the disco. If the disco is not responding, then take up your matter with the regulatory committee.
And another person who sent an email to us, he asked this question, that we should ask experts like you. This band A, band B, band C, band D, band E, is it peculiar to Nigeria or all over the world where you have access to electricity? They also have band A, band B, band C, band D.
I won't say is peculiar or is not peculiar. I think I'd rather answer the question from this perspective. Okay. Every country has its own design, the way it wants to categorize its customers, the way it wants to build its customers. So if it's a design that we have evolved in our own country to help us to reach a way, I mean, to arrive at a way of billing customers, I think that is unique to our own country. And I think one thing we should be looking at is, what is the philosophy behind the tariff classification in our country? The philosophy behind it is to, again, say, let's be able to recover some costs from those who have more, greater access to electricity, and be able to develop the areas where you have less access to electricity. So, and I don't think that's a totally bad way of looking at it, because even in tax management, those who are the affluent are billed more than those, or they are taxed more than those who are not as economically strong as the others. And NEC made this explanation, and we need to be very, very clear about that. That the only one of the fundamental reasons for this is that those who have greater access to electricity should also be ready to pay for the access that they have to electricity. I mean, take for instance, again, let's look at those areas that are not as developed as Asokoro, as Maitama, as Jabi, using Abuja, for instance, and then you have such locations scattered all over the country like that. If they are having access to quality power supply, then they should also be able to pay for it, because the product itself is not as cheap. So, and I think is in an attempt to bring about that quality service that he said, okay, let's build those who are having greater access, and as a result of that, we can get more money to fund development in other areas where they have less access to electricity.
Now, do you think this increase will have direct impact on manufacturers, small and medium enterprises, and the rest?
Now you have asked a very fundamental question, and I think we need to be very honest with ourselves and then be able to look at the data that is available. Now, electricity from the grid is one source of electricity for manufacturers, whether industry, I mean, those who are in manufacturing, in industry and things like that. Using alternative sources like solar, like generators and things like that is another source for them. Now, here we need to do a comparative analysis. Which one is cheaper? Records have shown clearly that electricity from the grid is still a lot cheaper for anybody, whether you are in manufacturing, whether you are in domestic. It's still a lot cheaper for you to get electricity from the grid than for you to generate your own electricity. For instance, for those who are using diesel, I think a liter of diesel now is over 1,000. I think over 1,500 and things like that. And for how many hours are you going to use a liter of diesel? How many hours are you going to use a unit of electricity that is costing you about 250 naira or about 254 naira? So when you do that comparative analysis, you can still say that if the discourse will maintain the 20 hours and above, I think it's a lot better for manufacturing because their cost of energy will drop and they will be able to have funds to invest in some other areas of their business. So for me, in spite of the 300% increase, it is still better for manufacturing, it is still better for industries because whatever they are spending on alternative sources can now be spent on electricity and they will still have some reserve.
But now, increment of 300%, don't you think it's an overkill for any kind of economy? Not to talk about Nigeria's economy, which is struggling to recover from the outcome of fuel subsidy removal?
Now, before you come to that judgment of an overkill, you need to first of all do a comparative analysis. So if the cost of if the production cost of the product is about, say, 1,000 naira, and then I was forced to sell it for about 300 naira. Of course, the thing to look at immediately is to say that will that increase of another 300 naira or will that increase of another 600 naira mean an overkill for me? I mean, I think that's one way we can look at it. Otherwise, it is not in the percentage, it is whether I am meeting my production cost. It is whether I am able to recover my production cost as a result of that increment. Because no businessman goes into business with an intention to lose. He goes into business with an intention to invest, recover his capital, and make some bit of profit so that the business can remain as a going concern. Otherwise, if you say that it shouldn't recover, then it means that that business will die. Do we want the power sector in Nigeria to die? I mean, that's a fundamental question we need to ask ourselves. Do we want the power sector in Nigeria to die? Government has come out more than once to say the subsidy that I am carrying is becoming too heavy for me. Only recently, gas which is denominated in dollar moved from $2.18 to $2.45. We know what the cost of the dollar is in the market today. It has moved from what it was around 700 plus to where it is today. Good a thing that government is fighting that sharp increase, but it is still above 1,000 naira. So all of these factors put together are the things that will now put on the table to say, is that 300% justified or not? I think that's the question we should be dealing with.
Okay, if we are to ask that question now, Mr. Bode, you know, when subsidy was removed, many people who were powering their equipment, be they barbers, be they welders and all that, they struggle to move to areas where there is better power supply, maybe 20 hours, 22 hours and all that, in order to survive. Now, this thing that they are running away from has reached them. If you go to Gwarimpa in Abuja, for instance, many residential houses have been converted to become barber's shop, you know, and even pure water and all that. You know, most SMEs now rely on electricity, meaning that we are going to witness 300% increase in the cost of some of these services and products. Is that correct?
Can we do a linear in that manner? Can we draw a linear?
Okay,
now,
it's your area.
I think it would be dangerous to say that we should do a linear in that direction. Okay. Because again, if they have to buy fuel in the place that they are coming from, it is obvious that they will pay more than what they are paying now. So when you do that comparative analysis, it may not be right to say that we will have a 300% jump. Unfortunately, that is, we may be having that experience because Nigerians will always want to give excuse for an unjustified increase in the cost of their service. Yet, the fact remains that if they say they live in an environment where they have to buy petrol, the question is, for how long are they going to use that petrol, or for how long are they going to use that diesel? So that comparative analysis has to be there. Take, for instance, a service provider in Kubwa, or in a place where they have about 8 hours or 4 hours of electricity. Because if you look at the categories of the different bands, you have category E, 4 hours and below. You have category D, 8 hours and below. You have category C, 12 hours and below. You have category B, 16 hours and below. And then you have category A, 20 hours and above. Now, take somebody who is in maybe Kagini or Day or some other areas where the electricity is about 4 hours or 8 hours. And when he needs the electricity, it's not available. He has to go and buy petrol. At what cost will he buy the petrol? So which one is cheaper for him? To move to Gwarimpa and have the electricity available and pay more for it and be able to service his customers and make money for himself, or to be in a place where the electricity is not available and yet he has to service his customer and he has to buy petrol, or he has to provide alternatively? I mean, look at this picture that you are showing now. Imagine that all these people where you have generators, there is constant electricity supply. I can assure you that they will like it more than to be in a place where they are not sure that the electricity will be available.
Okay, now there is this claim that if the discourse, especially the discourse, if they have done the needful since the time they got their licenses, we wouldn't have been in this problem. Could that be true?
I think we can argue it both ways. First and foremost, I can tell you that yes, to a large extent, the investment in the sector has not been as much as would have encouraged a lot of customers. I mean, today you can say clearly that customers are disappointed, customers are disenchanted, customers are unhappy with the quality of the supply that they are getting, this quality of the service that they are getting. I know, for instance, that about 4 states that are in the south and southwest region of this country, they have had to write to say that, look, our people are not getting quality power supply. And it's a known fact. It's not a secret thing that a lot of customers are complaining all over the country. But again, you need to ask the question, why are the discos unable to meet their mandate? Why are they unable to meet their KPI, their key performance indicators? Yeah. One of the fundamental reasons for that is also because there is liquidity crisis in the sector, and that has limited their ability to invest. Government's effort to make sure that this is not experienced has also not yielded the kind of fruit. Government has invested, even after the privatization, government has put in trillions of naira into the power sector. For how long is government going to do that? So as we put the cane, as we put the whip on the back of the discourse, on the back of the sector players, on the back of the stakeholders, we also need to look at their own challenges. What are the challenges they are facing? How is the business environment like? Is it a friendly business environment? Is the economic ecosystem one that is friendly to them, or one that is also asphyxiating, one that is suffocating to them? So when you balance both sides, then you'll be able to have a clearer picture. But I also hold the view, and I stand to be corrected, that discos have not discharged the responsibility placed upon them as a result of privatization. They have not, and we can say that confidently.
And is there a nexus between their inability to perform and then even the way and manner which some of them were given licenses to operate? Maybe they don't have the capacity to do that.
I think in the markets today, the argument is that there is a nexus, and we cannot completely disregard that argument, that there is a nexus between the level of efficiency and the manner of acquisition of the assets. I think there is a cross section of opinion amongst respected members of the public that there is a nexus between efficiency and the manner of acquisition of the asset. I mean, I read a story in the media some couple of days ago where somebody came out to say, somebody who was even in the communication department of the privatization, to say that the way this was handled, it was not in the best interest of this country. And I think, if I remember very clearly, a former minister of Works, Housing, Power and Housing, also said something in that direction, that the asset was just shared amongst political patrons and things like that. So you really cannot run away from that argument, and I think if you hold that view, you are not likely to be saying something that is unfounded.
And Mr. Fadipe, if you check the social media throughout since yesterday, the comments were that we are into another grand fraud, considering what happened with the fuel subsidy removal. You know, ahead of the subsidy removal, they say it's going to affect very little, you know, committee of people, the elite, that they are the ones who are going to suffer because they are the ones who have cars and all that. And at the end of the day, we realize that a certain category of Nigerians have been completely wiped out after the fuel subsidy. Are you not scared that we are in for another fraud again?
No, first and foremost, I don't want us to describe this adjustment as a fraud. I think it would be with profound respect to you. I think we should also be charitable enough to appreciate the fact that the adjustment has come as a result of economic indicators. Now, having said that, I think it's a matter of time before we see whether it is justified or not. And this is where we need members of the public, and we need the regulatory agency or the regulatory commission to be more how do I put it now, to look more closely at the discourse. We need to put the discourse on their toes. Generating companies today seem to have been able to discharge to a large extent the responsibility placed upon them. You can also not blame transmission completely. They have also been able to make themselves available to be able to carry as much load as their network allowed them to carry, and what the discos are prepared to take. There is what is called the day ahead nomination, DAN, that discos nominate the load that they want to take on a particular day. So for me, what we should then be dealing with here is a situation where we put the discos on their toes and make sure that they do what they have promised to do. The service level agreement must be constantly put in focus, such that anytime there is a deviation, that disco is brought to attention immediately. Like I said on a different platform, how many customers are aware that Section 75 of the Electricity Act allows them to write to NEC to say, we want this disco to be probed because the disco is not doing well? How many customers are aware? So the customers themselves must become people that are conscious and that are proactive, and they are ready to defend their rights. Customers must come to that level.
Okay, still on the fuel subsidy and electricity subsidy, you know that as we speak now, government is still subsidizing petrol because the price ought to have been around 1,000 if you look at the metrics clearly. And for the electricity, even though I'm not an engineer, but I know Imbet, right, which you know very well, was the one who was serving as like a shock absorber between GenCos and DISCOs while government is at the center. Now with this complete removal, can we say that Mbet will have no role to play, and Nigerians should hold government to account if any money is removed from that agency in order to stabilize what gets to DISCOs from what came out from GenCos?
Well, it's between the rock and the hard place. MBET is government agency. Government exists by way of agencies and departments and ministries. So MBET is one of the agencies of government. MBET does not have any money personal to it as an agency. Whatever money MBET has belongs to government, and whatever money government has belongs to all Nigerians. So if anybody removes any money from MBET, Nigerians should be able to ask questions about their money, and if the explanation is justified within the rules and regulation of expenditure, of course, that's the way it's supposed to be. But if anybody spends money outside of the rules and regulation, or not guided by rules and regulation, then that person should be properly and adequately punished according to law. So for me, yes, there has been an adjustment in the tariff, which by implication means that you have reduced the subsidy. And then whether MBET should exist or not, there are regulations, there are rules guiding the existence of MBET. I don't think one of the rules that guides the existence of MBET is that the moment you remove tariff, the moment you remove subsidy, therefore MBET should go. MBET responsibility goes beyond that. They still remain there to be able to ensure that stability in the market in terms of funding of the different market obligations.
And there is this allegation or claim or belief that some of these GENCOs, they have bargained more than they can chew, meaning that their area of jurisdictions are so big and they don't have the infrastructure to manage them very well. Will you recommend, fractionalizing some of these GENCOs so that maybe you just have one for a state? When you have issues, you know that this is the agency that you will hold to account. Will you subscribe to that? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Yes. We'll take a short break and fix the connectivity, and when we return, the program continues. Don't go away.
Should I keep quiet? And then we kept saying, can't we teach these people basic business, not hustling? Teach our people entrepreneurship, not hustling. Go to China, Guangzhou, different districts. They can turn fair. Am I saying what you don't know?
Yes, and you know why? Because we are coming from a sort of despite the narrative, anti-corruption. But the anti-corruption agencies went to sleep in the last 8 years.
However, if you are to go backwards and do a kind of audit, you will be shocked to find that the resources so far expended on the SDGs far outstrips the achievements face to face.
Most of the time when you are involved, it's difficult for you to draw back and have a holistic view. Because what? Sentiment would always come to play, because all of us would definitely, like I told you yesterday, I was 100% convinced that you cannot say you are qualified without bringing any document.
Welcome back. If you are just joining, you are watching Daily Politics on Trust TV. Do well to follow the conversation across our social platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and watch us live on YouTube. We apologize for the glitch we suffered ahead of going on break, and we still have via Zoom Bode Fadipe, the CEO of Search Consulting and Communications Limited. He is also a power sector policy analyst, advisory, and advocacy. Mr. Fadipe, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's like before we went break, you also suffered power glitch on your end, because I can see it's like you are using a lantern now.
Yes, I did.
We hope that they upgrade your area also to band A, so that you will not be suffering the.
No, this is not the time to be on band A.
It's not a good time, right? We'll will get to that in the course of the conversation. Yes, I asked the question before we had the glitch that will it be fine to actually have one state, one disco, or something like that?
Yes, the moment you threw up that question, I knew clearly that we were moving in the direction of the discourse, and I do agree that that argument has been in the public space, that some of the discourse have the size of franchise area that is too big for them, except for Eko and Ikeja. All other discos, the 9 other discos, they have at least 3 states under their in their franchise area. Abuja, for instance, Abuja Electricity, for instance, which I'm very familiar with, has the FCT itself, Nasarawa State, Kogi State, and Niger State. I know that BEDC, Benin Electricity, also has Edo, it has Delta, it has Ekiti, and it has Ondo State. Ibadan Electricity even has almost about 5 states, and also sharing boundary with Abuja Electricity. So I agree that they are quite large, and if it becomes necessary and it is possible, I think we can afford to break some of the discourse in such a way that the smaller they are, it can improve their efficiency. So I do agree to that extent.
And are you worried? You have hydro 2,062 megawatts. You have gas 11,972 megawatts. But even the 4,000 we are claiming that they are able to evacuate. Sometimes they have issues with it. Where are the problems? Where?
I think essentially we cannot completely disentangle the value chain and say that, okay, this is where you have the major problem. I think what we can say is that each location has its own challenge. For instance, let's take from the generating companies. Part of the challenge they have today is that the gas with which they fire the power stations, particularly for gas-fired power stations, the outstanding debt is debilitating enough. It's not allowing them to be able to provide energy at their own installed capacity. Now, so that means that they are not able to give you all of the energy that is available to them. Now, is this a fault of theirs? It's not their own fault. Because if you don't pay them for the energy that they have supplied, it becomes difficult, if not impossible, for them to pay the gas companies. So when you move away from generation, you come to transmission. Transmission today, one of the biggest challenges that transmission is facing today is the problem of vandalism. As a matter of fact, some are even alleging, they are making allegation that we need to look inwards. I remember a newspaper carried that story, that we need to look inwards. But even if you don't look inwards, at least the transmission facilities are being vandalized in this country. And how do you expect that a vandalized network will be able to deliver on its mandate? It's impossible to do it. The other day, I think September last year or so, the Kainji Brinning Kebi 330 kV line, if I am correct with that identity, was vandalized. The line feeding one of the countries that we feed was vandalized. Not too long ago, we also suffered vandalism here and there in the country. So if we continue to vandalize transmission network, how do we want transmission to function? And then when you come to distribution, the major problem that is associated with distribution is that they don't have facilities to receive load. So even if generation is able to bring, has installed capacity of about 13,000 megawatts, and we say that transmission can take up to 8,500 megawatts, what can distribution take? Can distribution take that amount of load today? So you will see that in the entire value chain, from generation to transmission to distribution, everybody has his own share of the challenge. But it looks like the last man on the line is the weakest link in the chain, and the chain is as strong as its weakest link. So if distribution is the weakest link, that is the extent to which the power sector is strong.
Now, Mr. Fadipe, if you look at what government said in terms of savings, they say with this removal, they will be able to save around 1.1 trillion. We will monitor them to ensure that they do the needful in other sectors. But it means that this discourse will now get this 1.1 trillion. Who will hold them to account so that it will be ensured that apart from paying the basics, they now invest these huge sums in infrastructure so that they can provide better services?
You and I mean, the media has a role to play, NEC has a role to play, the customers themselves have a role to play. NEC, they submit their, for the purpose of this discussion, I think people should know that the discourse submits their OPEX and CAPEX budget to the regulatory commission. So the regulator is able to see what they are going to spend money on and is able to monitor. So if they say a project is going to be located at in front of Trust Television by the end of this year, a project is going to be at Mafemi Street, a project is going to be in Utako, a project is going to be in Port Harcourt, a project is going to be in Birnin Kebbi, a project is going to be in Calabar, a project is going to be in Sokoto. The NEC, the Regulatory Commission, has a responsibility to see that that project is done. The customers in that area, they have a responsibility. Maybe what we should even be dealing with this time around is almost like what goes on in the National Assembly. When the discos draw their budgets, when they do their capital budget, when they do, especially their capital budget, let them even publish and say, okay, for this year, I'm going to put this transformer here. I'm going to put this injection substation there. I'm going to reconduct this line. I'm going to draw these fresh lines. And at the end of the budget cycle, or after every interval, we should go and see whether they have done that. I think that is one thing I want to recommend to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Let DISCOs publish their budget, their capital budget for the year, and let us see whether they have met it. If they have not met it, let them tell us why they have not met that proposal or that proposition for that period of time. So, like I'm saying, the media has a role to play, and that's exactly what Trust Television is doing right now, because I see this as part of holding the power sector accountable to the public. The Electricity Regulatory Commission, it has a role to play. The customers themselves, they have a role to play. But over and above all of these things, because we are in a democratic environment, let the DISCOs publish their capital expenditure for the year and say, okay, we installed 500 transformers, we built 2 injection substations, we constructed 10 33 kV lines, we constructed 15 11 kV lines, we did LT reticulation in the following locations. Let's be able to see, let's make it transparent, because it's my money you are collecting and I need to get value for my money.
Yes, Mr. Fadipe, you know, we are discussing the struggling Nigeria's economy, but it appears there is serious mismatch in some of the policy direction of the government. For instance, you know, ahead of fuel subsidy removal, the federal government said they are going to, you know, import compressed gas vehicles, one. And then even before then, they said they are going to replace, you know, gasoline-powered vehicles with electric vehicles. Now, the cost of electricity has gone up, meaning it will also affect those vehicles at the end of the day if they arrive. the cost of gas has also gone up, meaning it is going to affect the gas-powered vehicles that they are going to import. And this is 10 months since removal of fuel subsidy. Are we really serious? Are we a serious country? And do we really look at some of the implications of our policy mismatch?
You are moving in the direction of politics now, and I hope I am competent enough to speak about politics. But I think in terms of seriousness, I think we can conveniently and comfortably query our level of seriousness about this country. I think we can do that because there are some things that you see in this country today, and then you begin to wonder why we move in that direction. And I give you one or two examples. For instance, our security architecture, we have been battling with that area of our life for some time. Again, coming back to the power sector, which we are looking at very closely, for crying out loud, we have been 10 years in this sector, and is it to say that the issues in the sector are so tough, so difficult, that we cannot resolve them in 10 years? I don't think the stories have changed substantially in 2013 when the sector was privatized, and in
Yes, hello.
2024 grid at any point in time, yes. we are still saying that we have not been able to electrify the whole country after about 100 years of electricity arriving in Nigeria. So it raises a lot of questions. It raises a lot of questions for us who are living in Nigeria today. What has been the pattern? How did we get to where we are? Why did we have to get to this place? What are the things we need to get out of this place? So I think I will not disagree completely with you if questions are raised about our level of seriousness in terms of running this country.
Okay, and are you satisfied with the liberalization further of the electric sector? That is giving even local government, if they have the wherewithal, to now generate electricity and even sell state governors. So is it a step in the right direction? And how can we harness this window to solve the existential problem?
I think there is one credit that must go to the last administration and the current administration. I think is the liberalization of the power sector. Frankly, that is one area we must give them credit for. So what am I trying to say? In the 50s, our founding fathers, some of our founding fathers wrote to say that let electricity be a matter of the concurrent list. But the federal government did not allow it. Now, between the 50s and today is several years gone by. It is only now that we are realizing the benefit of allowing states to be participants in the power sector. I think we must give it to this government. And I'm hopeful if the state governments choose to take advantage of it, I'm hopeful that it can do a lot of good to us. For instance, I just saw an appointment by Kaduna State government today, appointing a managing director for Kaduna Power Company or so, local to them. So, and if they can develop along that line, I know too that Enugu State already has its own regulatory commission. I know that Oyo State, Plateau State, Lagos State, maybe Ogun State and Osun State, and a host of other states, they are already developing their energy power sector policy so that they can take advantage of the liberalization of the power sector. So I think it's a fundamental thing. It's a wonderful and a welcome development.
Okay, and finally, you should say this in less than 30 seconds. Labour, they said the whole decision by the federal government is callous and unacceptable. Manufacturers said cost of production will go high. What do you have for them?
Well, Labour will always have something to say, but does what they are saying make sense? Does it make sense? I mean, can Labour really stand up and say that what government has done is wrong? As for manufacturers, I think we need to interrogate the data that is available and see whether their position is true or not. I told you earlier on that if they compare the cost that what they are spending on provision of electricity from other sources and what they are being asked to pay now, if the power is stable from the discos, I don't think they are, if anything, they will even save more. They have opportunity to save more than to say that they are spending more. I don't think so, unless the data that has been made available is not correct. Unless that data is not correct, otherwise, I think manufacturers can look at their position again and see that they are not totally right with that position.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister, for being part of this program and for your informed perspective. We hope to have you some other time. All right, and viewers who've been interfacing with Bode Fadipe is the CEO of Search Consulting and Communications Limited. He also undertakes power sector policy, analysis, advisory, and advocacy. We hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics, airing every weekday, and our special package on Friday, during which we open the telephone line for you to comment on national issues, as we will do tomorrow by God's grace. Thank you for being with us. Bye-bye for now. I'm Hamza Idris.